Welcome to A Cup of Happy. I'm your host, life coach, mom, and friend, Nicole James. I'm so glad you've joined me to talk about life and the journey from our past to our future as we navigate the present in order to create our very best life. So grab your favorite drink, get comfy, and let's chat over a cup of happy. Hi friends, and welcome back to another episode of A Cup of Happy. My name is Nicole James, and today I get the pleasure of introducing you to Marie Lovett. Marie sits down with me and has a conversation about her childhood and what it was like growing up in a divided home with just a single mom and the devastation of not knowing her dad. I hope that if you find some inspiration in her words, that you will reach out to her and connect with her. Her story is sure to touch the hearts of many because, unfortunately, in our world, there are so many of us who grow up not knowing who our father is. I hope that you will connect with her and reach out to her. Her information is linked in the show notes. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Marie Lovett. Marie, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
I am really excited to get to talk to you. I know we've been talking a little bit already, and I am super excited to let other people hear your story because it's pretty incredible. So I will admit that after we connected and about you coming on here and doing this with me, I looked at your Facebook and all this, and it looks like you have like such a beautiful family.
Oh.
And
make me cry, like, right away. Thank you.
Sorry, no, seriously, like, you do have a very beautiful family.
Thank you.
But I know that hasn't just happened to you. Like, it hasn't just fallen in your lap. You've kind of made your way there. And so I want to, like, back up and talk about, like, your life growing up. Like, let's start there. And so what was life like growing up for you? What was life like for little Marie?
Yeah, life for little Marie. If I could go back and give her a hug, I know a lot of people say that. I wish I could just go give myself a hug and tell myself that, like, you're going to go through some really hard things and you're going to think there's no end. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. And for you to say I have a beautiful family, that's something that I never thought I would ever have. So life growing up was hard. My family dynamic was myself, my half-brother, my mom, and my stepdad. My stepdad and my mom were never married, but they were together for a very long time. He was all I ever knew as far as a quote-unquote father figure. But like fatherly or loving, he wasn't really any of those things. I don't ever remember getting hugs from him or having like deep one-on-one conversations with him. Growing up, he was just there. My mom and his relationship was very turbulent. Lots of arguments. Yeah, a lot of turbulent times with that relationship. My mom dated other individuals that she would meet online. She took me as far as Alabama at one point to live with a man that she met online who ended up being not very kind with his hands. It was very physically abusive to both my mom and she. I'm grateful she did protect me from that, but to witness that was really hard. All that to say, we ended up back in Michigan where we were from, and she was back with my stepdad. But relationships like that were not uncommon to where she was meeting people and then dragging me into the relationship. My brother is significantly older than me, and so he was kind of out of the house and doing his own thing at that point. So she had me to kind of like take along on these little excursions, if you will. And so that was certainly not an environment where I felt like I knew what a family should look like or how relationships should work. Kind of fast forwarding a little bit, I lived with my mom up until I was 17. She and my stepdad split sometime around my sophomore, junior year of high school. And I moved out with her outside of our school district. And so when she moved out to this different apartment and I went with her, I was able to stay at the high school that I was at, whereas like elementary, I went to 5 different elementary schools, 2 different middle schools. We were moving all over the place all the time. I was able to stay at the high school that I was at for the 4 years because I could drive myself to school at that point. And I worked, so the way that my school offered some credit was that I could do, I could work in the afternoon. So I would go to school in the morning and then I would work in the afternoon. So I did have money that I'd saved. And there was just this one very pivotal moment I remember with my mom, that I was like, I have got to get out of this house. I'm not, and things aren't going well. You know, there's a lot of drinking, a lot of drug abuse in this home. I'd been locked out of the house before because she said she didn't want me there. And I remember, I know we talked about this a little bit. I don't know if this is the best time to share this, but there was a lot going on in life at that time. And I remember this night, I was in the bathroom downstairs of the apartment, wedged myself between the cabinet and the toilet. So like this little space. And I was crying. And my mom was like yelling at me about something. And I was just having this breakdown. I can't even explain what it was like. I don't know if it was a panic attack or if it was really just like me having this immense cry for help. But I said, I don't want to live. I don't want to be here anymore. It was basically me just kind of hitting that rock bottom, I guess, of teenage angst, I guess, if you will. But it was when she said, like, basically, shut up, you're just looking for attention, that I was like, I've got to get out of this environment. Like, I won't make it. I won't do anything good with my life if I can't get out of here. And so I ended up subleasing a very small room on campus with 7 or 8 other women that were going to Michigan State University, and finished out my senior year living there. And then
that's incredible.
There's a lot more after that.
Yeah, that's incredible. There's so much there already.
There's so much. Gotta unpack a lot there.
Yes, you mentioned going back and, like, you want to go back and hug little Marie. And, like, I do. Like, I want to go back and hug little Marie because that's a lot.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much there. First of all, just witnessing the bad relationships, not having any kind of good relationship modeled for you.
Yeah.
And then, being locked out of your own home. Oh, my goodness. There's just so much. Like, wow.
Yeah, it sounds really crazy to say those words out loud, but it was a common thing, right? It was very normal, if you will, for me in that stage of life where my mom said, what are you doing home at 10 o'clock at night? But she knew that where I worked from 4 to 10. So if I didn't get home until 11, I had closed up the shop and I had come home.
Yeah.
So it was like a lot of really unnecessary blame, and then like lashing out at me for I don't know what. I still don't know really why.
Well, probably just a lot of her own trauma.
Yeah.
Just misplaced.
Yes. And as I've gotten older, honestly, that is something I've had a lot of anger towards her for so long, and since becoming a mom myself, there are a lot of things that I do look back and look like she did have, as a single person, essentially. There's a lot of challenges that she had to overcome.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe she didn't do it right, but maybe she didn't have a choice either.
Or the knowledge or resources or...
Exactly.
Yeah. So you mentioned growing up with your stepfather. Tell me a little bit about, like, maybe your biological father, or where was he in the picture at all this time?
So for a long time, I never really realized anything was missing. And this is going to sound so cliche, but like daddy-daughter dances would come and go, and I never went. I mean, my stepdad just wasn't that kind of a guy. And it didn't really start clicking to me until I got older that, my real dad is somebody. There is a person who, with my mom, created me.
Yeah.
I don't know how old I was, but I remember my mom standing outside at the mailbox checking the mail and just being really angry. and saying that the child support check was supposed to be here weeks ago. It hasn't come. And it was kind of at that point that I realized, like, there is this person out there that is, like, paying my mom for me, child, you know, and then you kind of start putting the pieces together. And in hindsight, you know, many, many, many years later, after I found out about my biological father, I was taken back to that very day that my mom was at the mailbox saying, "Where is the check? The check isn't coming." And no one knew why the check wasn't coming, but, like, there was a reason the check wasn't coming. And that is now a good time to just jump right into that piece?
Okay.
Many years go by. So I worked at a salon in Michigan at the front desk. I worked there for many years. I loved it, had such great relationships. And through those relationships of clients that would come in on the regular, we had several that were lawyers, worked for the state or whatever. And so when I got to a point, I must have been 18, 19 years old, I think. And I was like, you know what? I got to find my dad.
Yeah.
I want to find my real dad. Let's see what this is all about. I don't even know where to start, but we had a gentleman who was the previous prosecuting attorney for that area. And one day I just asked him, I was like, hey, I'm trying to find my dad. Where do I start? You know, like as an 18, 19-year-old, where do you even start when you have nothing to go off of? Before I moved out of my mom's house, I did swipe some information that looked to be important. So, like, I had my dad's full name. And so I gave him the information that I did have. And several weeks later, he came back to the salon for his appointment. And he was like, hey, can I talk to your mom? And I was like, you know, my mom and I don't really have a relationship. So I was like, I don't really want to bring her into this. And he's like, okay, well, you know, can you step outside? And, you know, my boss and I had a great relationship, and she knew why he was asking, I guess. So we stepped outside, and he's like, you know, I want to have you come to my office downtown so I can show you some things. And so made it this date, went downtown and sat at his desk, and he handed me a death certificate, and it was that of my dad's. And I don't know, you know, I'd never seen a death certificate before. Don't even know if I knew that they existed, really. And my eyes went to the very bottom of that death certificate, and it said the cause of death on the bottom, and I just lost it. Just having a full circle moment where I was in my mom's bathroom wanting to end my life, and then coming to this death certificate of my father who ended his life. It was a very, like, just a moment of so many emotions. Why is this happening to me? Why am I still here? Maybe I'm just like my dad. I'm not supposed to be here. Why did he do this? Why didn't he care enough about me? So many things that just kind of came to the surface all at once. So I got in the elevator. I kept it together in his office. I got in the elevator and I crumbled. And the security guard at the bottom of the, you know, because when you go into a government building, they typically have you go through the detectors and everything like that. They helped me out to my car. I just sat in my car for a while and cried, and a lot of things, a lot of emotions after that moment. It was, the process of grief was very instant. I was very, very angry for a really long time. And really kind of like self-loathing too. I was already probably clinically a depressed teenager. And then it was a lot of, why is this happening to me? You know, what have I done in this life to deserve, like, a crap mom? My dad killed himself. And I felt very, very alone. And still to this day, I don't feel alone in the sense that I don't have anyone to talk to. I feel more alone that I don't have a mom or a dad to call and say, hey, thanks. You have a grandbaby, or My mom did meet my husband when we were dating, and it was like, my husband quickly realized why we don't have a relationship. But I don't feel that today, but then I felt very much like, what am I going to do in this world when I have nobody that's got my back? My brother at the time had moved to Iowa, so he was very far away. And so at that point, I think I was around, like I said, like 18, 19 years old. Still a lot of life left to live, and looking back, I had a diary. I ended up throwing the diary away just actually within the last few years when we moved into this house that we live in now, because it was just full of things that didn't need to be revisited anymore, I guess. But in that diary, I wrote, I'm not going to see 25. 25 is like my cutoff date, whatever. And I don't know where that number came from, but it was almost just kind of like, I don't know what I had to prove. I don't know what I was doing between 18 and 19 and 25, but I had given myself essentially an expiration date. I didn't have anyone to help me live life or guide me or help me. I didn't really feel like I could possibly make it in this life. Yeah. So that's my dad.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like there's, wow. At what point, so obviously 25 came and went, and where was the moment, or was there a moment, or was it a series of moments that you said, okay, this isn't my expiration date, I'm not accepting that, and like I want to like live a beautiful life. Like where was that moment? And in that moment, were there any resources that you like leaned on, or any people, support system? What was that middle area like for you?
Well, the next big step of this is, again, there's so much from my childhood and younger years that I've blocked out, but I have these very specific days in my head that I can tell you what the teacher was wearing, what my classmates and I were talking about before I did it. But there was one night in college, I was taking a night class because I worked during the day, and it was a statistics class, and statistics was very difficult with a teacher that did not speak English as a first language. I wasn't really paying attention, maybe. And I had my laptop with me, and I don't know why, I feel like I'd done it before, but I Googled my dad's name, and when I did it this time, I found the obituary for who would be my biological grandmother, so his mother.
Oh, wow.
And in that obituary listed all of the kids and the grandkids and everyone's names. And so I had heard rumors from my mom. I guess like it was coming back to me at that point that my mom had always said, your dad has a family somewhere and you have 2 sisters. And so, in that I saw 2 names that would have correlated to being my biological father's children. Okay. And so I took to Facebook and I searched for them, and it took a long time. If my sister listens to this, I hope she laughs, but my sister has her last name as her first name and her first name as her last name.
Oh, wow.
So it took a while, right? Because like when you're searching for a name, I wasn't looking, for example, like Lovett Marie. I was looking for Marie Lovett. Right. And I found her and like pictures, and I was like, what do I have to lose? And so I sent this message. I still have it and look at it often because I think it's like just wild to think back that this actually all turned out the way that it did. But I sent her a message, and it was really awkward. I was like, hey, I think I might be your sister. And she's like, oh my gosh, I have to talk to my mom. Thank gosh her mom was very accepting of the whole thing. Like, she had apparently also heard a rumor that there was another child at some point. So kind of fast forwarding a little bit, I have 2 half-sisters, and I met them on Father's Day that following year.
Wow. And what year was that?
This was in 2011.
Okay.
And so, when I think about, was there like a moment or a time where that 25-year-old expiration date just kind of disappeared, I don't really know that it consciously did. Instead of living in a life of just sadness, I had so much more to look forward to. After meeting my sisters and their mom, you know, the months went by. I had gone and had dinner with them a couple of times and got to know them a little bit. My husband and I actually ended up moving to Tennessee, and so of course we didn't live near them anymore. But to kind of like even further complicate this story, we had just moved to Tennessee. My husband was traveling, and I get a Facebook message from someone saying, "Hey, I think I'm your cousin, and I live in Strawberry Plains." At the time, I didn't know where Strawberry Plains was.
Right,
we just moved here. I Googled it, and I text my husband, and he's like, "Yeah, so I'm your cousin," and I mean, through that conversation, I have since met my biological dad's brother, my biological uncle, my biological aunt, and their whole family. So I have like this whole family that I never expected to have, which was something that, you know, I think when I was saying I don't want to be here past 25, that it was because, like, who wants to live a life where you don't have anybody? Like, I was never the girl that thought I'd get married, never thought about having kids. But after meeting my cousin, my uncle, getting to know that whole side of the family, that it was really just a missing piece for my heart to feel like you have so much more to live for. And that, I mean, would I have wanted to meet my dad? Of course I would have.
Right.
I mean, like, my uncle, the day that I met him, cried because I look so much like my dad. And he says I have the mannerisms of my dad. And while that's hard to hear, it also makes me feel like I've got a piece of my dad with me through my uncle and his family.
Yeah.
But through those relationships that I've been able to build because of the circumstance that led me to them, I wouldn't change anything. I think we would all want him back in our lives. But for me personally, I don't think that I would change the way that life is to have him back. Because I've been given so much more through the experience of having to do the hard work of finding people. And being accepted, which I think is also, for anyone listening, if they're in a similar boat, because so many people have told me that, you know, I'm trying to find my dad or my mom or my sister or whatever. I've seen the stories where it doesn't go that way, right? Like, you find them and they don't want anything to do with you, or you find them and their families don't accept you. And I've just been given just this huge blessing to where everyone of that family that I've met, even though I feel internally like this illegitimate child that no one knew about and no one cared about, they've still accepted me anyway, which is also, I think, part of what helped me just kind of just forget about 25.
Wow. You've come through a lot. You really have. And like I said, I don't want to take away from what I said earlier about you have like a beautiful family, and I can only imagine like how much more that means to you, like after hearing more of your story. What is it like for you now, like creating a beautiful life? Like, what is it like? I know I've said this over and over again. I feel like I'm kind of saying it on repeat, but with other people that I've spoken with as well, but life isn't perfect. Like, it's, and sometimes we think like if we are going to create a beautiful life, that every part of it is going to be beautiful, and there's still so much hard times even in life. But how do you feel like your life is beautiful even though it's not picture perfect?
I mean, I think it's picture perfect.
Oh, I love that.
I really do.
Yeah.
And this is where I'll get the most emotional. My husband has been the one who, oh my gosh, he should have given up on me a long time ago. I have not always been a positive person. I still am somewhat pessimistic. Honestly, very pessimistic. But my husband is like an eternal optimist. And if it weren't for him and his constant, unwavering dedication to helping me see the beauty and positives and more things, I know there's this thing called toxic positivity. I hate that phrase.
I do too.
I think there is a way to be toxic about the positivity by just like shrugging off people's struggles. But there really is, I mean, no matter what struggle we encounter right now, I just find gratitude for it. Something that my husband taught our son, our older son, who is 7, about to be 7 next week, is that we don't have to. Like, so we get to go to school, we get to go to work, we get to wake up every day, we get to clean the house. Like, all these things that we get to do instead of we have to do is just a way of expressing our gratitude just for waking up really another day. And so, like, when I say life is perfect, like, of course we have our struggles, we have our ups and we have our downs, but gratitude for every little thing has really been what's changed my perspective and my life in the way that I hope to continue my journey in life, is just finding appreciation and gratitude for just the smallest things.
Yeah.
There's this word, and I love it, and I don't even know if I pronounce it correctly, so maybe somebody can listen to it on Google for me, but I think it's frisson.
Okay.
Frisson.
Okay.
And every day I look for those moments that give me that moment of frisson. So, like, if you listen to really beautiful music, or you see artwork, or you hear somebody singing and you get goosebumps, that's the name for that moment of when your body recognizes the beauty in something and it has this external moment, right? Like, so goosebumps.
Yes.
I love music, and when I'm listening to music, it's mostly when I get that feeling.
Yeah.
And so I do live every day kind of like looking for those little moments that make me feel that way. And it can be so simple, just putting my phone down and taking a walk, or watching the clouds move, the music, or just anything.
Thank you for teaching me that word.
Yeah,
I've
don't
never
think
heard
I'm pronouncing it right.
Well,
frisson.
we'll look, for now, it's frisson.
Okay.
And we can look it up and see. But I love that because I get that. And that is so amazing. So that kind of leads in very well to like how I want to close this out. But then I want to come back after I do this part. But you kind of led into it so well. So gratitude, because I do feel that gratitude is so important. And I do also hate the word toxic positivity, because I feel like people do, it's like they almost use it as an excuse to not find positivity.
Yes.
And do we know that there's negative things in the world? Absolutely. Especially if you've lived through anything traumatic. I mean, you know.
Yeah.
But so in my practice as a life coach, one of the things that I encourage my clients to do is to every day find 3 things that they can be grateful for within the last 24 hours.
Okay.
So not like your big, like my house, my family, my job, because those are like the overarching things that obviously we're grateful for, but by focusing on the small things that may have only just happened in the last 24 hours, we're kind of like training our brains daily to look for the gratitude. So just like you look for the frisson moments. I love that. So would you mind telling me, can you think of 3 things within the last 24 hours that you're grateful for?
Oh, yeah. So, sleep. We just got our 7-month-old to finally start sleeping at night. So sleep is like this beautiful, amazing thing. Like a cool wet day like today. Just before I came here, I was walking with the baby outside and just trying to take in some fresh air just while we could. The ability to just be in the moment. So this morning my older son asked, "Can you come up and watch me play?" And he has got this engineer brain that just doesn't work with my non-engineer brain. And so sometimes I don't really want to I'm being a terrible parent admitting this, but like I don't want to like watch what I don't understand, because his brain is working in a way I don't understand. But this morning I took the time to sit and watch, and I'm like, this kid is so stinking smart. He's gonna just create so many amazing things when he gets older. So just the ability and to have that moment.
Yeah.
To just be present.
I love that.
Yeah. Those are great.
So, where can people find you? Tell, like, what are you creating in the world? Like, so you saw my post on the Women in Entrepreneurship page.
Yep.
So, tell us a little bit about your work so that people can find you. And
Sure. So, I am a certified financial planner by day, if you
Okay.
will.
Okay.
It is my technical job. And then I have a little side business called Brew Wealth. So I love coffee. So hence the Brew
Yes.
Wealth. And the story
cute.
behind the name of the business is that, it's a personal finance coaching. So I focus primarily on busy working women and their families. Traditionally women don't really love talking about money. So I hope to change that. Yeah.
I don't. I admit. I hate it.
I hope to change that narrative. And by focusing on women specifically, but kind of going back to the name of Brew Wealth. So if anyone listening knows how coffee beans are, like how they grow or how a coffee tree grows, it's a very long process. It starts as a bean, grows in a tree, has to get harvested, then it gets shipped, all these different processes just to get to your cup of coffee. And personal finance is like the same thing, right? So it takes time. If you're in what you feel is like not a great financial situation right now, you can't get into a better situation tomorrow. You have to work on the process, right? So it's not just an instantaneous thing. So my hope is to make personal finance more, or I should say less stressful, more enjoyable, and dare I say maybe just a little bit fun or exciting, just by like demystifying a lot of the topics and whatnot. And so my Instagram is Brew Wealth.
Okay.
And I just like to share like real life scenarios, like very transparent on there about motherhood, our personal finances, financial struggles, and really just kind of hoping that people want to talk about finance as much as I do, which they don't. So it'll be a lifelong journey.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely need to follow you more because I struggle with wanting to talk about finances, but yes, but I can probably learn a lot. So
yeah, we all can.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
And for anybody that is interested, I will link all of her information, Marie Lovett, in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here, Marie. I appreciate your honesty and transparency, and I really think that a lot of people are going to really relate to different parts of your story.
Thank you. Thank you for giving us a platform to share.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Thank you.